Thank you, Dr. Nate Howard, for being with us. And I have had the pleasure of getting to know you this past year, and it has been a great delight to me. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning for us to have a conversation.
Okay.
And I think it's important because it will enable you and me to get to know each other even better, to grow our friendship, and and to be able to help each other. Because as you and I have discussed, sometimes in our discussions, I'm the student, you're the teacher. Sometimes
Mm,
you're the student, I'm the
oh,
teacher. And we shift back and forth, which I think is
right, right,
wonderful.
right.
So thank you
Absolutely.
for being here.
Thank you.
You've got a new job as CEO of a foundation, which is something you've never done before. Could you maybe share with our audience what that new job is, that new responsibility?
Yes, I am the proud CEO of the Lincoln Hills Cares Foundation,
Mhm.
and the foundation is dedicated to support Lincoln Hills Cares organization, which is an
Yes.
organization dedicated to bringing our youth, our children of low income and disadvantaged um, up to the Rocky Mountains and letting them explore themselves, explore the mountains. Just turning on that what I call love for stewardship, and you can't do that unless you actually been there. And so, the foundation, I look at it this way: the organization is the engine, Lincoln Hills Cares, and the foundation is the gasoline that serves the engine. Okay, so it's strictly dedicated to the CARES organization in order to find funding for that love to take place.
I want to take a much deeper dive into Lincoln Hills Cares, but before we do, you are a Denver native, is that correct?
That's correct.
And so you grew up here. What part of town? Tell me a little bit about your childhood and your education and your interests.
Okay. I'm writing it down here. As you get older, you realize to write that down.
Exactly.
All right, my childhood, where, and education and interests. Well, I am truly a Denver native. How do I say this? I think I would say I am a third generation Coloradoan. My family started, at least on my mother's side, started in Kansas. We traced it back. Well, we traced it far. We've done our lineage that goes on my mother's side quite far back, all the way to um, slavery, and also with my dad. So that's an interesting lineage with my mom and my dad. But long story short, at least on my mom's side, from Wichita, Kansas, they were um, sharecroppers, and they cotton to be a fact, and they used that money and bought property in Pueblo, Colorado, and then with Pueblo, so they homesteaded in Pueblo, Colorado first, and then with the rail. Go ahead.
You saw that I was forming a question. I'm sorry. Didn't
No
mean to
problem.
telegraph that. But so were there slaves in Kansas? They must have been slaves somewhere else and came to
Yes,
Kansas to sharecrop.
correct.
Okay.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely were slaves
Yeah,
in the
right.
South. Yes, for
Yeah.
and that's just been an interesting tell on that.
Hey,
Because
Nate,
they,
have you ever done genetic testing to know, for
well, we
example?
have a genealogist who went through the family records.
Okay.
Young lady Texas, and she's pretty darn good.
Uh huh.
So she traced it all the way back that on my mother's side that the it was uh it was the slave owner's daughter who had a relationship with one of the slaves. She created the grandfather
Wow.
Yeah, it was the other way around. Normally you think it's the slave owner
Yeah.
who creates the children, but no, it was the daughter who created our lineage from my mother's side.
Did you ever use like 23andMe or any of those services? Is
No,
that
no,
it's
this is
never
a
been
young
of
lady,
interest
yeah,
to
this
you
is a
to
young
do
lady
that?
who does that, and it's funny on my dad's side, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Uh, he was a Mojave. His parents were Mojave Indian,
Oh, okay. Cool.
and yeah, and the interesting side that they chose to pass as. I mean, my his mom and dad were on the actual reservation. Um, he chose to pass for African American as opposed to Native American.
Yes.
Never said anything. Never said anything.
You know,
Never heard it.
you just prompted another question, and that is I have a young friend who recently expressed that he doesn't identify with the words African American.
Okay.
He said, "Hey, I've never been to Africa. I don't know anyone in Africa.
Yeah, that's a
I
debate.
don't call me an African American."
Call me black. Yep, that's an ongoing debate. That's a the phrase African American came from basically your lineage
Hmm.
as people of color is from Africa, right?
Right. Right.
You're right. You have nothing to do with African America. But then the other question on that debate is, okay, where's black land? You're black. Where's black land? You will deal with some people that are still living that would rather be called Negro. So it's an ongoing debate within our culture of that definition.
Yeah.
But we all understand we're people of color. So whether you want to call African American or black, it's synonymous. It's just a matter of what you want to be referred as.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Hmm.
so that is the key. So going back to my family, especially with my dad came here through the military, United States Air Force. That's how he got to Colorado. My
Yes.
mom, obviously, being born and raised in Colorado, second generation, she was already here.
Yes.
All right. So born and raised in Denver, Colorado. I'm a proud graduate of Denver East High School. Uh,
Fantastic.
yeah, we have a very not bad, but good attitude about East High School. We always say Denver East High School. So it's a beautiful building. We love it. We love it. From there, I went to a historically black college called Clark College. It's now known as Clark Atlanta University.
Yes.
Had a wonderful time there. Really, it set my path. Clark's motto is that it still is culture for service.
Yes.
So it really set my path. Now, how I ended up at Clark because my high school sweetheart went to Clark. I first originally went to Payne College in Augusta, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
We didn't have cell phones back then, and so and my mother was as a single parent at that point in time. She gave me two choices: I could transfer or pay the very large phone bill I was causing. So I ended up transferring to Clark. Yes, sir.
But wait a minute, you just blew right through high school.
Yeah, I did.
You gave it a quick mention.
All right, you want me to
But
go
the
back?
reason why I'm asking you to maybe step back for a moment
Okay.
because you were both an athlete
Yes.
and an academic.
Yes.
You were an unusual. How did you think of
Well, you know
yourself then?
what? That's kind of interesting. It's funny. 'Cause I'll tell you back. In middle school, and you'll get a kick out of this because of some of the research you've been doing.
Yes.
So in middle school, not only was I an athlete and trying to do as best I could in school, I was also a musician. I
Oh,
played the saxophone.
saxophone. Yeah.
Right. Matter of fact, I started playing music in elementary at Columbine Elementary in DPS, and
Okay.
they didn't have a saxophone; they had a cello.
Yeah. So they gave it to you.
Yeah, right. We don't have a saxophone, but we got this cello over here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll do the cello. So imagine me walking. I live like 7, 8 blocks from Columbine.
Okay.
So I carry that cello from Columbine up to my home in St. Paul. And so
That was your weight training.
it was my weight training carrying that cello. It's a good thing I didn't say string bass. I really would have been in trouble.
Yeah, right.
So by the time I got to high school, my mother really supports us, and she put the money together, and I bought my first saxophone. So, and that was cool. So I played saxophone up until I got to high school, because then I did not realize I can do both. So
How many brothers and sisters?
that's it. Well, I have 2 biological sisters, and then I have 4 brothers by another mother. We're just that close.
Yeah, right.
We're just that close, and so that's how I look at my family that way.
Well, did you do well in high school?
But that's I did well enough so I can continue to play football, and
Ah,
that's when I realized the um, the unequalness in education. Um, I have one of the brothers I talked about, I just mentioned. His parents were in education, and he had all of the right classes. I'm an educator right now. I've been in education for 30 years.
yes.
That's my craft. That's what I'm good at. And if your child is going through high school, they have to take some type of AP course or concurrent course. Concurrent means it's a college credit class while they're in high school. The district pays for it. Your child has to be challenged academically. Well, that didn't happen for me and some of my friends at East High School. In the regular basic classes, some of the worst teachers that were there. I can remember an English teacher, and he'd come in instead of let's learn to do the English curriculum and instruction, he'd talk about truck drivers. He was a very colorful man
Yeah, right.
that had nothing to do with learning how to write.
Yeah.
There's a number of teachers that had that love and that passion for teaching, and they tried to do the best they could. So I always say I was kept eligible to participate in sports. I'm a scientist, but I never had a physics or a chemistry class in high school.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I hit college and doing chemistry and physics, I, almost literally freaked out. Like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Right.
As opposed to actually had done it before, so it's not foreign.
You
Not
had to
shock.
you had to overcome a system that let you down.
Yeah, it let me down. It's hard for me to say a system that let me down, but that's the honest truth. DPS did not um, end their segregation until 1976, based on the Keys case.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Keys lived in Park Hill, near Smiley Middle School, and they actually bombed his house.
Wow.
So you're talking about the Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Denver Public Schools did not segregate until 1976.
Right.
That's how long they held on to it.
Right.
Separate but equal is inherently unequal. They held on to that. So yeah, I can do that. But it wasn't just. I had a counselor who was a former Olympic champion, and he looked at my grade point average, and he said, "You know what? The best thing you do is go to the Army." So, and then there was another counselor there that heard this conversation. And by the way, both counselors were black. We'll say that. We'll use that term today. It was a black male who said, "The best thing you can do is go to the army." But there was another counselor by the name of Phyllis Denny. Unfortunately, she's not living at this time.
Yeah.
She heard the sound of my voice and my sadness, because go to high school, go to college. The guys I hung around with, that was our goal: go to high school, go to college.
Right.
Okay, that's where girls are anyway. All right.
Yeah.
So very simple.
Yeah.
And she called me into her office and said, "Nate, where would you like to go?" She put a book on the desk that's about yay thick.
Yeah.
And she said, "Pick a school. Pick one. Wherever you want, pick it." And that's how I ended up going to Payne College. One, I wanted to go to a historically black college. I wanted to go to an institution that was built for me to help me be the best that I can be.
Yes. Right. Right.
And so I chose Payne. I chose a number of them, but I chose Payne because their admissions officer signed my acceptance letter personally. You're looking at you've been accepted, you're looking at the signatures. Some are printed on there.
Yes.
But hers was a personal signature.
Yeah.
And I said, "That's it. This is where I'm going to school." Now, of course, I was in love with my high school sweetheart, and she kind of messed that all up. I'm going to blame her. And I transferred to Clark. But
Yeah.
so although the system failed me, and I can agree with that, there were people within the system that circumvented the system to make sure that the children of DPS, the black children, had opportunity. And I guess that's what still drives me today, is making sure our kids have opportunity. Now, if you choose not to go, that's on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you're going to get that opportunity to make a choice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When did science, and later you received a master's degree in plant biology, correct?
Yeah, ecology. Yeah.
Botany?
No, well, ecology.
Oh, ecology.
Yeah. The botany was kind of going by the wayside at that point.
Yeah.
Well, it's ecology, plant ecology.
Mm-hmm.
So you're asking me, when did that love start for science? Is that the question?
Yes, exactly.
Well, the love started since I can remember being alive.
Right.
A
love for nature.
love for nature, but it was also more a love for being a scientist. We grew up in the time of Jacques Cousteau on TV, and I just said, "Okay, that's it. I am going to be a marine biologist."
Yes. Right.
First, I was an oceanographer, and then I narrowed it down to a marine biologist.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, at that time, the only problem with being a marine biologist in Colorado, there's no ocean. So,
right. It's a bit of a problem.
it's a bit of a problem. So science came. Not only was I in love with it, not only did I have the opportunity. One of the opportunities was also business, and it was a business opportunity and a nature opportunity. East Denver YMCA was a mainstay in East Denver. It no longer exists, but it was a huge influence to a lot of Black children during my time of youth.
Mm-hmm.
My mother worked very hard and got us a membership, and she felt comfortable leaving us at the East Denver Y all day. Only thing I got in trouble for is I always lost the towels.
Yeah.
Where's my towel? I cannot keep donating.
Somebody swiped
it. Nobody swiped. I just left it. Went home, walked home, just left it.
Yeah.
So.
Were you able to? But you grew up in Colorado. Were you able to get up in the mountains and enjoy?
That's my point. With the East Denver Y, they had a deal Well, they have a camp called Chief Hooray.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. Now, two stories on the mountains. So Camp Chief Hooray, if you sold, you can pay out of your pocket, but we financially couldn't afford that. So if you sold these cans of butter toffee peanuts, okay, and there was cases, and you sold enough, so you would get a certain amount per can on the dollar.
Yes.
But that would pay your fee to camp.
Okay. Good.
Okay. And so being a business person, you have that's my start in being a business person is going
Yeah.
around door to door selling these cans of peanuts
You were
in the
motivated.
wintertime. In the wintertime, cold as hell. And we're selling these peanuts. And so that got us up to 7 days, no more than 7 days, up to Camp Chief Hooray. And they had a lot of great stuff. So that kicked off the love for the mountains.
Right.
Now, my uncle was a musician, and I didn't even know this until years later.
Right.
And he used to go up to a cabin, and he took us a couple of times, my mother and my two sisters. And we used to go up to a cabin. I remember a river and be in the mountains, and we're just hanging out, having a good time. You want to guess where that was?
Tell me.
Go ahead. Say no. I want you to guess. We're up in the. He's a musician.
Okay.
In
Lincoln Hills.
Lincoln Hills. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
because that was part of the entertainment component of the resort then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. But I had no idea that was Lincoln Hills at the time. You know, that's
Okay. All right. Yeah.
it's just the mountains. You know, it's 6 degrees of separation.
Was it still a functioning resort during that time, though?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's functional. Not a functional resort. I think people, black people own property up there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they own cabins that were up there.
Right.
Okay, that were handed down through the generations.
Right.
So that's the best I can say on that. Unfortunately, my uncle has passed, so I can't go back and ask him.
Right.
You know, I can't get that history back.
Right. Okay. All right. Good.
You know,
So,
so that's my love of the mountains. Now, plant ecology. You know, again, I was into science. Science came. It's something I really didn't have to study when I was in high school. Didn't realize that. You
right.
know, I probably could, if I probably put my mind to it, I could have made straight A's. But it's like, okay, well, I know it's this answer. I know it's
Right.
that answer. And
Without studying, you knew it.
right, right. And the teacher, African American, a black woman, Miss Love, uh, she was the science teacher. And
Yeah.
when I worked for DPS as an educator myself, I used to always tease her and say, you know what, I can't believe you gave me a C. How could you? What, really? And she would laugh and just say, well, you know, you earned that C, so I don't know what to tell you. You now know you're better. You were better than that, but
Yeah.
and so it's great.
But you know, Nate, as you tell this story, you had many of the components of a well balanced, healthy childhood so far in the story that you've told me. That is to say, you were loved, you had interest, and you were able to act upon those interests, like
Hmm.
the outdoors, like music
Hmm.
and education and sports, right?
Hmm.
That's pretty good balance for a childhood. So is it fair to say that you had a pretty good upbringing and
You know, all because of my mother.
she was the rock?
She was the rock. She's the one that made sure it happened. She was the one that worked hard where I grew up in Walnut Hill, as opposed into a neighborhood that was more low income
Mm-hmm.
with more challenges.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she took on the world. She fought those battles so her children,
For you.
yeah, for her children didn't have to. So We were sheltered. I mean, we were sheltered pretty good because of her. Now, when
Mm-hmm.
the reality hit sometimes, and I realized, wow, we're broke.
Yeah.
we're oh my goodness. And I think I was 8 or 9, and there was a lady, and one of the young men I used to hang in elementary, and I guess she just wanted to be mean. She
Mm.
pointed out my secondhand clothes and a lot of different things. And so I went home one day and I said, "Mom, why didn't you tell me we were poor?" And she just
Mm-hmm.
looked at me and shook her head. And I had a complete meltdown. Oh, I had a complete meltdown because
Wow.
that was not my reality.
Right.
You know,
Huh.
she does such a wonderful job that wasn't our reality. But I had a complete meltdown. And being a parent now, you look at the child like, "Are you really serious?
Yeah.
Seriously?"
Do you still have your mother today?
Yes, I
Okay,
do.
great.
And she currently lives with my two wonderful sisters in Houston, Texas.
Oh, okay, good.
And yeah, they convinced her to sell I mean, the house that I grew up in, she rented for over 20 years and eventually bought that house.
Yes.
So it was hard for her to leave that history. But she doesn't. She likes not dealing with snow.
Happens as we get older.
It does. So she's loving her life in Texas right now. I talk to her every day.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. Yeah, I was doing the same thing before I lost my mom.
I hear
It
that.
just you know the at some point the end will be near and it's
Yeah,
important. Yeah.
yeah.
So, you completed your undergraduate degree
Hmm.
and then you decided to get a master's degree.
No, it wasn't that I decided. That was always part of the formula.
Okay, so you knew going into your advanced education, you
Yes,
were going to get an advanced degree.
absolutely, absolutely.
And so, where did you get your biology degree, your master's degree?
I got my master's from the University of Colorado at Boulder.
Okay, so you came back home
Yes.
and you did that as a full time student.
Yes and no. I have many interests, just like you.
Yes.
Uh, so I was hired by Denver Public Schools by some mentors that I had in Denver Public Schools. Again, system may have failed me, but there were people that circumvented the system in
Right.
order for us to have opportunity. I want to put that back out there.
They filled in the gaps for you.
They filled in the gaps, and
Hmm.
there were some men of color, Latino as well as Black, that filled in the gaps. I would not be sitting here and having this conversation without their mentorship,
Hmm.
their hand, whether it was a strong hand or a pat or a hug. Uh,
Hmm.
I would not be here without them. So um, going to again, when I got to Clark, my major was biology. I was going to be a scientist, and I kept hanging around the education department. It was calling me. We always say teaching is a calling. It called you. Well, when I was a principal and hiring teachers, I would always say, I can teach you how to teach a child, but I can't teach you how to love them.
Hmm.
You have to come with that. If you
Yes.
don't love, you don't have a passion for it, this is not the career for you.
Yeah.
Okay, because we can teach you instruction. That's
Right.
pretty good. But I
Yeah.
can't teach you how to love my children.
Hmm.
So, um, coaching. Remember the football, very, very good to me. Coaching was a desire and a dream. I wanted to be a head coach.
Yeah.
And so I was assistant coach for some great head coaches. One notably is Herman Motes. He was a head football coach at Thomas Jefferson High School, where they won. He won two state championships. I was one of the last
Hmm.
state champion on the coaching staff. So I started my master's degree Matter of fact, I started a PhD program at CU. I got into their PhD program.
Hmm.
And then I got the opportunity to be the head coach at Manual.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so let's say, oh, head coach, PhD, I'll go for the head coach. So we switched to a non-thesis master's degree program at CU Boulder, as opposed to continue with the PhD
Yes.
program.
Hmm.
And I loved it.
Yes.
So yeah, I did. So coaching at the same time, I was taking courses to get my principal's license from UNC. I pretty much probably covered all the institutions in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, as did my family.
So at the same time working on that master's, I was working on my principal licensure
Yes.
coursework at UNC.
Yeah.
So it was always the goal. So the doctorate was always the goal, always.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's interesting. So, you also then used it to teach at MSU Denver, for example,
Yes.
later.
The
Later.
master's degree allows me to be an adjunct professor.
Yes.
So I was an adjunct professor at, like you said, Metropolitan State University, which I love teaching biology to non-majors. And it was so beautiful because the kid that I had at Palmer Elementary when I was an elementary teacher, and the same kid that I had at Manual High School,
Hmm.
I also taught him at Metro. So that was an interesting trajectory lineage, and so that was great. So yep, I had that opportunity, as well as adjunct professor at Community College of Denver.
Hmm. Great.
So that master's allowed me to do that in science.
Hmm. So now you were able to engage in your love of sports through coaching. You were able to fulfill that dream of teaching, and with that giving back, you were almost required to do that because so many people helped you along the way. You needed to pay it forward. Fair statement?
Oh,
Yeah.
fair.
And that continues to this day. I mean, that's just part of your DNA.
Yes.
So now you've got this opportunity for a very different career path. About the same time that I had a very different career path when I, left business and went on staff with the American Cancer Society. We're doing that at about the same time. So, how do you feel about this? How did this opportunity arise, and what are your goals going forward?
Okay. Well, the opportunity roles that I am on, I was not currently, back up. I was a member of the board for Lincoln Hill Cares organization.
Hmm.
So being a board member, you go ahead.
How and why? How did you?
Um,
How were you selected for that role?
I was selected for that role because of my education background, as far as being in education.
Yes. You
And
were
so that,
connected to the students in need.
yes, well, not necessarily students in need, but excuse me,
Sure.
my expertise is in education.
Yes.
Because our organization works with students, that's a
Mm-hmm.
good fit.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good fit. So that's how I was recruited to be on the board of Lincoln Hills Cares.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at the time, the board of Lincoln Hills Cares served also as the board of Lincoln Hills Cares Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
We would start one meeting and then end it and then start another meeting. So it was linked that way. So they've always been together.
The nonprofit came into existence in 2008. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
By
And how
founders, go ahead.
how did that happen?
Two gentlemen
Mm-hmm.
by the name of Matthew Burkett,
Mm-hmm.
and the other gentleman, Robert Smith,
Mm-hmm.
uh, put the nonprofit together for the benefit, again, is for the inner city youth to take advantage of the Rocky Mountains. Okay, so that's how Lincoln Hills Cares got started with those two gentlemen.
Did you know Robert and Matthew before
I
the?
knew Robert before I met Matthew.
Mm,
Robert, again, um, Robert is a lifelong friend.
yes.
He's one of the brothers I mentioned earlier.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that's my connection. So I guess I would say I knew Mr. Smith before he was Mr. Smith.
Mm. I know who Robert Smith is, but not everyone watching this knows who he is. Can you share a little bit about Robert Smith?
Robert Smith is, at this time, one of the largest philanthropists
Mm-hmm.
in the, I want to say African American community because it rolls off so nicely, but in the Black community, he is designated as
Mm-hmm.
known as the richest Black man in America at this time.
Yes.
Uh, but barring that, he has one of the biggest hearts of
Mm.
this time because Robert has never forgot where he came from.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of people that make a lot of money, but they forget where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
At least in our culture, we say that, but he's never forgot that he's a product of Denver East High School,
Mm-hmm.
Denver, Colorado. So he makes sure that the children in Denver, Colorado, um, have access, and he makes sure that his philanthropy touches their lives to
Mm-hmm.
make it a better situation. Again, his parents were both in education.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Mm.
Yeah, his parents were both principals in Denver
Okay.
public schools. Okay, again, influence on my life.
Mm-hmm.
We're hanging out after high school doing things, and there's two African American principals sitting
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
having a conversation and talking about life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Robert is a brilliant man. I mean, he went to Cornell University
Yes.
and majored in chemical engineering.
Mm-hmm.
One of the stories that they told him he couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he picked the most difficult major
Mm-hmm.
at Cornell and was successful. Now he could have gone anywhere. He had appointments to the Naval Academy, all the academies. He could have went anywhere. He's
Mm-hmm.
that smart, that gifted. So um, that's his private equity firm is obviously one of the largest equity firms in the
Vista.
United States. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and so um, again, because of his love for Colorado, Denver, and the children of Colorado, Lincoln Hills, and Matthew Burkett's love. Matthew is a Colorado native from Evergreen, Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Because of these two gentlemen, their love for Colorado, Lincoln Hills organization, nonprofit exists.
Yes. What about Matthew? Did you meet Matthew later in life?
I did. I met Matthew through Robert,
Mm-hmm.
and it was brotherhood at first sight. I can say
Mm-hmm.
that.
Have they been business partners in the past?
I don't. I would say yes,
Mm-hmm.
but when we meet, it's not about business and business partners. It's about three gentlemen hanging out.
Yes,
You
right.
know,
Enjoying
and
each other's company.
absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I
So,
just know that Matthew is also a very, very successful businessman, and that's
mhm,
the kinship between the two. They're both of them they're successful businessmen, unapologetically successful.
right.
I love it.
You know, a month or so ago, I asked you if you had seen the film, the 28 film Green Book. And I had seen it, and it was educational for me. It is, Nate, Hollywood. Hollywood does its thing. They weren't producing a film for its educational value so much as for entertainment purposes, but it was an eye-opening experience for me. And then, if I understand correctly, as African Americans or Black people traveled in the past, the Green Book enabled them to know where they could stay, where they could eat, and Lincoln Hills as a resort was a place that Black people could go and relax and have a resort. Is that correct?
Yes, it started around 1922.
Okay. Yep.
That is correct. Again, it really opened up to musicians that used to come here and play in the Five Points, the Rawsonia, different clubs of that nature during that time.
Yes.
I don't even know if the Rawsonia was open in 1922. I have to do my history.
Yeah.
But we do know they played in the clubs during that time, and that was their escape to the mountains.
Yes.
Where they could be safe.
Yes. So Robert and Matthew knew this history. They grew up with this history. And when the opportunity came for them to acquire that piece of real estate, it was a natural thing for them to do. Is that?
I would say yes.
That's pure conjecture on my part.
Yeah,
I'm just
I
guessing.
mean, it's a good connection. I would say yes.
Yeah.
Again, these two gentlemen thrive on giving back
Mm-hmm.
to the community, and I think
Right.
that's probably the most important thing. Is that being successful businessmen that they are, they didn't lose sight of where they come from.
Right.
And I think that's important. And the importance is that they know that it starts with the youth.
Right.
In order to cultivate the next Matthew Burkett, the next Robert Smith, you have to set up these pipelines. You have to set up the opportunity. You have to let them know that that can be you. You can do the same thing. But here are the keys to getting there.
That's hugely important.
Here are the keys to getting there. So if you don't know the keys of getting there, somebody
Right.
has to lay the keys down. And the first key is go to high school, go to college. Become good at your craft.
Yes.
Okay. These are the keys in order for you to be, you can be me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some give and takes, and there's some key events that have to happen in your life. And you young person, male or female, you're in charge of that.
Mm-hmm.
However, we're going to give you the opportunity to get there. We're going to create the platform for this to happen because we know the system is not designed for it to take place.
Mm-hmm.
I already know that. So we're not going to rely on the system. We're going to create a platform for it to happen for you.
It feels to me like these two successful gentlemen recognized the opportunity, saw this asset that we have here in Colorado that many people didn't even know about, and said, we've got an opportunity here. They're looking into the future. And now you, Nate, have some soft clay that you can shape and mold for the purpose of execution, helping disadvantaged kids to more fully understand their heritage and to fully understand and to capitalize on this great state we have and the opportunities. And we give it the name STEM, and you have a particular view and a particular vision of what STEM means to you and your mission. Somewhere in there, there's a question, Nate. I'm working at it.
Well, you know what? There is a question in there.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but fill in the missing pieces for me, if you would, please.
You know what, John? I just need to record everything that you just said.
I can't repeat it.
Because you did a wonderful job. I couldn't advertise better than that. You know, You did a wonderful job on that piece. Uh, I do want everybody to take it. I haven't had the opportunity, and I'm sorry. I'm doing double screen here duty, so I do apologize, Johnny. You know I'm doing.
You're
Double,
looking up, you're looking
yeah,
something up.
I'm
But
looking.
I think too, I need to do a better job as I post this on my Google YouTube channel, that I put the appropriate links both to your foundation and its needs and the organization and that which it delivers to our community. And I will do that. I'll make that promise to you. And I will also post this on LinkedIn so that we can promote this discussion so that people, if they like what they hear, can contribute to your
Okay,
vision. I don't mean just in terms of money, but in terms of time and
right. In
and
kind
coming
contribution.
together.
So, based on STEM, the science, technology, engineering, math,
Right.
uh, there is a field. There's a field of study that is devoid of girls and people of color, and that is the environmental STEM piece. And it's been devoid for quite some time. Again, in order to close that gap and create those opportunities, a platform has to be created.
Yes.
So part of the new programming, because we have wonderful programming in Lincoln Hills Cares. Don't I mean, please go by the website and take a look. Lincoln Hills Cares organization, wonderful programming we are already set. But we're looking to build also for the next 50 years and then some. And we know that STEM opportunities, the STEM fields, again, the science, the technology, the engineering, the math, you have to, again, set a platform so kids can have an opportunity to become those. Okay. So by building environmental green jobs, I'm going to call it environmental green jobs, the Forest Service,
Mm.
parks and wildlife, um, being a professor at University of Colorado at Boulder, and that you're studying the interaction between the wildlife. Army Corps of Engineers, when you're building things, how does that affect the environment? Working for the railroads, if you're a railroad engineer, how does the railroad going through an aquatic environment? How does that affect it? All these opportunities, and there's a vast more opportunities. There's jobs that are there that haven't been created yet that are based on the environment. Because one of the things that we both know, global warming. Okay, there are some things that are taking place to our environment that we need to get control of. Let alone the pandemic that we're in right now. Okay, how does that affect the environment? How does how do we capture it? How do we deal with that?
Mm.
So in order to light the fire, because
Hmm.
there are Matthews and Nates and Michelle's and Natalie and Nicole. I just basically just said my wife and my two daughters. I called their names off, which my daughters are both in the science. Go figure.
Yeah. You might have had a
uh,
little influence on that.
just a little, just a little. Uh, so they how do you set that platform? How do you kick off that spark?
Hmm.
You have to put them in the environment.
Hmm.
You have to say, you know what, that's a wonderful flower that you just picked.
Hmm.
Okay, but do you understand what that flower has to do with the ecology? The and by our goal is to make Lincoln Hills accessible 24 hours, 365 days a year.
Hmm.
We're working on that project. So by doing that, by creating that love for stewardship, we're going to be able to have people that are going to sit at the table at the National Forest Service.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, People that sit at the table again. I spent time at Parks and Wildlife. It's a very unique culture. Most of the graduates come from CSU. Yeah, CSU.
Mm-hmm.
Other than one of our board members, Mr. Long.
Mm-hmm.
He's from coming from Oklahoma. I don't know. I still tease him about that. Really, really, Travis. Uh, but how do we tap into that? You can't tap into it until you have introduction, a pathway
Mm-hmm.
into these fields.
Mm-hmm.
So STEM is so important, in many different ways. But
Mm-hmm.
we want to make the environmental approach a
Mm-hmm.
pathway
Mm-hmm.
into our future generations.
Mm-hmm. What are your biggest needs now, do you think? It's so many. It's a long list.
Right. Well, I laugh. The reality, the reality is that it takes funding
Right.
in order to create pathways that uh, that are scale that can
Mm-hmm.
keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
You can create the pathway. Yeah, I can create the pathway, but how can this pathway affect not just, uh, for example, a public school system,
Mm-hmm.
school district 27J,
Mm-hmm.
three high schools, or in the middle schools?
Mm-hmm.
How can I affect that population?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I didn't say Denver public schools because Denver has Ballarat, but let's say Aurora public schools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's even say the Boys and Girls Club with their 10,000 participants.
Right.
Okay, the need in order to do that, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
it's not free.
Mm-hmm.
But the love and the creation of the pathway and the use of the pathway
Mm-hmm.
by our children should be free. They should not be burdened with the
Right.
cost.
They're children. Mm-hmm.
So who, if not you, then who
Mm.
picks up the cost
Right.
for this?
Right.
So what you say, what is your biggest need? My biggest need obviously is major, but we take minor, the gas, we take leaded gasoline, but we definitely would prefer premium, but we do take leaded gasoline in
Yeah.
order to run Lincoln Hills Care. So
Right.
for you as an example, John, if you and you have, thank you, I will put that out there, donated to Lincoln Hills Cares organization,
Mm-hmm.
great. But I'm also looking for the major corporations.
Right.
Say, you know what? We need people in STEM. We need STEM background environmentalists in order for us to continue to grow our corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And we need everybody at the table. We need Latino, Black, um, Asian. We need all of you
Male,
at the
female.
table.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Not necessarily a melting pot, 'cause I don't want you to melt together, because I want you to bring your life experiences
Yes.
to your table.
Right.
Okay, by bringing your life experience to the table, we can make a better decision on what we're going to do with our world,
Yes.
because everybody has a part, as opposed to what currently takes place
Yes.
at the Colorado Parks and Wildlife. I don't know. I'm guessing, and I do apologize. But who's at the table making these decisions?
Right.
Okay. Now they may have uh, a multi-racial decision-making policy group.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say I don't know,
You
but I do
recently,
know you got to create the platform for it to happen.
I love the
Sometimes it,
partnerships that you're forming.
mhm,
You had an opportunity to meet Matt Wasserman recently, who's
yes,
been helping you. You're partnering with my dear friend Patrick Gaines, who is the Chief Development Officer of the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Denver. That has some very interesting possibilities. My friend Rick Russin building a STEM program at Valor Christian High School. Those kinds of partnerships are going to not only will you benefit, but they will benefit from knowing you and participating with you as you build this foundation and support Lincoln Hills Cares.
I couldn't have said it better. Again, John, you said it so well. Just need to capture it. Um, yeah, these gentlemen are, um, lack of a better term, they get it
Yeah, they do. Hmm.
as well as you.
Hmm.
They get it, and it's you know bringing what they do best
Hmm.
to the table to create to take a vision
Hmm.
and make it scale, make it applicable, make it work.
Yes.
And it's it's not done in a, again, lack of a better term, a silo. It's a group. It's a group effort. Okay,
Hmm.
and you have to recognize there's give, there's take.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I'm good at is having the ability to take the talents of others, mesh it together, and make the program work,
Hmm.
make the program successful. Not because of me, but because of the talents that are intertwined. There's a couple of gentlemen, um, J.R. LaPrairie, who
Hmm.
is the managing director of Lincoln Hills Cares Organization, have
Yeah.
is and has done a wonderful job
Hmm.
with this program.
Hmm.
Okay, vital piece of what's taking place. Again, he's the engine, and he's
Hmm.
doing a wonderful job
Hmm.
with everything. Uh, then you have Tim Flynn, who to me is the soldier. He's the boots on the ground.
Hmm.
He actually uh, what's the one I'm looking for? Schedules each organization to use to come in and work with the property.
Hmm.
So, again, their talent intertwined with the talent that you just mentioned
Hmm.
makes the mission uh, happen.
Hmm.
Okay. One of the things, like you said, new frontier is okay. If I got all this talent here to make the mission happen, I
Hmm.
have to go find the gasoline to supply this to keep this talent moving.
Yeah, you do.
This
Hmm.
talent is not going to move without the gasoline.
Right.
If you build it, they will come. Yes, we're set on building a program that is outstanding.
Hmm.
That's going to produce a pathway into environmental STEM
Hmm.
that people around the world want to be able to take advantage of. It's that good. But in order to do that, you said, what is the biggest need? I have to find the funding.
Yes. Right.
And that's the challenge,
Well, you're not alone
you know,
in that
an
journey.
acceptable challenge. Yes.
Yeah, are there any questions that I should have asked you along the way in this conversation, and any important points that we may have missed that you think our listeners need and should know?
Um, I think one of the key functions of Lincoln Hills, and let me see, John, so I can be very specific on that. That Lincoln Hills is a program that is ongoing currently.
Mm-hmm.
And we just want to make sure it's viable for the next 50 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest goals is creating a go to high school, go to college, a pathway into education. So
Mm-hmm.
we just want to make sure that it's just not. We're trying to. Um, we're educating the next generation of leaders through experimental learning and fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is not. This is applied science. This is hands on. You know, you can know the. You can. I'm trying looking for something, John. I'm sorry. You
No, go ahead.
can. You can know.
Nate, you said the operative word as you're looking that up. The operative word being fun, because when you were a kid, it you didn't have to study in the sciences.
Mhm,
You just enjoyed it
I
and
did.
therefore remembered it. And so what I'm hearing you say is you want to make sure that that component is part of the program.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's very important that you do because you know you're taking. Okay, I found what I was looking for. You want to again. You know, in education, I can't say I ever went to work
Yeah.
because it's my passion.
Right.
You know, it's. I mean, as I get older, I know I left education for a period of time and came running back because it's my passion.
Right.
So why am I saying that? Is because when we bring up our children to Lincoln Hills, we want them to enjoy the experience so much that they don't realize what they're taking away are tools to help them navigate the STEM opportunities of the future.
Hmm.
It's so transparent. It's so wow.
Yeah.
I was doing DNA studies, electrophoresis on trouts.
Hmm.
I had no clue how this goes into the study of infectious diseases.
Hmm.
I've been, you know, in middle school, and I get to high school. I mean, they're doing electrophoresis now at the middle school. Go
Yes.
figure. Um, so that's the hidden, that's the secret ingredient. And I probably shouldn't have said it, but that's the secret. I gave up the secret. That's the secret ingredient is that through the curriculum and instruction that our kids are having so much fun.
Yeah.
Uh, they don't realize the solid science and engineering and math that they're getting in the process.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
Dr. Nate, you have done a great job of explaining this historic gem here in Colorado that so many of us didn't know existed and given us a vision for your future. I'm so very grateful for our friendship. I'm so grateful for the time that you spent with me here today. I'm hoping that many people will have the opportunity to watch and or listen to our discussion today because it gives them an opportunity to have a basic understanding and then to dig deeper by reaching out and talking directly with you. So
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
you're welcome and thanks for your time. And let's bring it to a close with that.
All righty, sir.